Welcome, everyone, to the Smoke Signals podcast. My name is Kevin Darwish, your drift editor here at PASMAG, and we are with...
I'm Harjohn, also a less drifty editor at PASMAG, and also a podcast host.
So today is a really cool episode because we have none other than the round one winner at Long Beach, Fredric Aasbo.
Woo!
Thank you for joining us.
Hey. Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on here. I guess when we set this up, we weren't really the winner yet. So
no.
You guys certainly know how to predict the future.
Do you want to be invited before every event?
Yeah, maybe. Yes, sure. Maybe that's the good luck charm.
So, you just came the season opener. You got the win, some insane battles. We could talk about it a bit further, but we have a little segment that we like to start off with, and it's just to have a bit of fun. So what we call it is Would You Rather. Would you rather drift in a full race suit made of fur or wear a helmet that permanently smells like fish?
Oh, my God. No. I would probably do the fur suit. I think I'd rock that.
Hey, you could have a cool suit under.
Sure.
There you go.
Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah. You know what? I actually, coming from Norway, and, it's obviously very cold, I feel like I handle the heat reasonably well. A lot of dudes run cool shirts in FD, but I don't.
Really?
And, yeah, because it kind of feels, so for those that don't know, cool shirt is, the t-shirt that has veins in it where you run cold water through it. I don't like it because it kind of feels like you're peeing yourself. Like it's that weird kind of wet feeling. So
wow. Yeah,
I could rock the fur suit.
Would you rather drift a Prius with 1,000 horsepower or a Supra with shopping cart wheels?
Oh my God. That one is very easy because the Prius is actually a great chassis, believe it or not. And we've obviously looked into it. And I think that would be in one way, the coolest car to run in FD because it's such, imagine getting beat by a Prius. And the TNGA platform with the swing arm, suspension, all that, the Prius would actually, it would kind of work like an E46, similar to the Corolla that Ryan drives, my teammate. Whereas a Supra on caster wheels would, it'd be undrivable, obviously.
Have lots of angle, though.
Yeah, sure, definitely. Lots of angle as you're spinning non-stop 360s down the straight.
Yeah.
Zero grip the whole time.
Number 3, I'll let Harjohn take number 3.
Okay. Now, would you rather compete in a drift comp blindfolded with a co-driver yelling directions or use a PlayStation controller as your steering wheel for the entire event?
Wow. That one is tricky. Okay, so in FD, we do get blinded a lot by the smoke. And I actually do exercises where I'd run on the treadmill and close my eyes for up to 10 seconds to try and still run in a straight line. Because when we're caught in the smoke, we need to go by muscle memory and remember where we've been and come out of the smoke in the right spot, right? Hopefully. So, but being blindfolded and have someone tell me, I think it'd be, that would be, I do not want to be that driver. I also do not want to be that co-driver for that driver. I guess it could be done, but I'd rather try my luck with the PlayStation controller, I think.
Talk about being blinded, though. I know, like most cars nowadays have LED headlights, and an LED light is a very reflective light source. When you're chasing at a night event, let's say at Irwindale or Atlanta, and your headlights hit the smoke of the leader, is it like that much worse?
So yeah, it's kind of like that thing, right? You drive through fog, and if you have your high beams on, it's actually less. You'll see worse than without. Yeah, it's everything happens so quick, and the headlights, the tracks are lit, so it's never really dark where we drive. So it's more. It's more. You never really have time to really stop and ponder if if you should have the beams on or not.
Yeah.
Right? Everything happens so quick. So when you're caught in the smoke, all you're really doing is looking for something.
A reference.
You're looking for a piece of the car, a tail light, whatever. You know, you're looking for some reference trackside. So I can't really answer that. You know, the headlights are basically unusable anyway because they don't really help anything.
Because I know, like, coming, you know, you come for where there's a lot of snow, or you guys must have snowmobiles like we do. And we have a lot of people use yellow headlights for snowmobiles because it pierces through fog or snowfall or whatnot. Sure. Same concept for fog lights. A lot of fog lights I know are yellow. And I see that, like, RTR, Matt Field, people have yellow headlight lenses. So I'm wondering it has to do with that.
I like where this is going. Can we hire you as a consultant?
Well, what you don't know is I work for a LED lighting company, and we actually do have we have two kits on that people are testing. Dylan Hughes has a kit, and it has like a wireless switch, and he could toggle between white and yellow. But then Dylan says, I'm so like stressed and concentrated that I always forget to switch it back.
I see.
Yeah, and Adam LZ has another kit. Yeah, it's something to test. Like I have it on my car, but we rarely drift at night. So in DMCC. But yeah, something to take into consideration. Should have signed an NDA before doing this episode.
I'll put it in my notepad, and if you have any military aerospace connections too, I'd love to try some radar goggles.
Okay.
You know,
I'll note that down.
Yeah.
All right, next one. Would you rather have your drift car shoot confetti instead of flames, or have it shoot glitter instead of flames?
Oh, I like glitter. I guess I'm fancy like that. I'll do glitter. Yeah, my better half loves glitter too, so she'd probably appreciate it. I have a better chance of getting lucky that way, I think.
All right, last one. I'll let you take this one because.
All right. So, would you rather have to narrate all your drift runs in a dramatic movie trailer voice, or have your spotter only communicate through interpretive dance?
This weekend.
Did you say interpretive
dance? Yeah.
I'd love to see Steph dance. I've never seen that, so I'll probably go with that. Less work for me, and maybe some fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's fun.
I like that.
So, all right.
Okay.
So as we said, first event, Long Beach, you taking the win. What does that mean for you to, like, how important is it to start the season with a win? Do you think, like, starting with a win sets up the whole rest of the season, or not?
I think it does. Mm-hmm. And I would almost argue this is the most important event to win, because it sets the tone and it's a confidence boost. And perhaps the most important part, it takes some pressure away, because no matter how the rest of the season goes, you've still accomplished that one thing. Mm-hmm. So, and it's also, you know, I have such a love-hate relationship with this event and this track, because obviously I love the nitty-gritty stuff of the competition and being in the zone and working it out, figuring it out, and learning, right? Mm-hmm. But I hate the mounting pressure going into it, because the off season typically works in a way, we come off the season, then I have a month or two off, and then I start working towards the season. So you have 5 months that are building up to this moment where you can lose it all in 5 seconds, or in a split second, really.
Yeah. And
then you have all the sponsors, the partners, everybody coming out to that event with big expectations and hopes. You know, it's Rockstar's hometown. It's all the Toyota executives are there. We had the chief engineer from Japan. We had obviously the whole Kenda crew there. We went to Kenda Tires this year, and everybody, they're all supporting us, and they're very supportive, but I don't want to disappoint them. Mm-hmm. And I know very well I can lose out like that in top 32, and then, you know, you disappoint everybody, and especially myself. So So it's hard. It's really hard to do well at this round. It's a very treacherous course, but when you do it and when you get it right, everybody knows that that's quite the feat. So I'd say it's the most important one to win, and it usually sets at least somewhat the tone for the rest of the season.
I guess you go on like a high or on a boost going into the second, third, and fourth rounds and so on. So
sure,
I think it's a good way to start. That's for sure.
Yeah.
This year, are there any big changes with the Supra? I know you're on a new tire. Other than that, is there any big changes?
Nothing big. And very little have actually changed in setup for the new tires also.
Okay.
But there's still some weight we can get rid of because the tire is physically smaller or narrower. We can shed some more weight in the car that we're working on. And it's all tuning, you know, like little suspension tuning. We do a lot with sway bar tuning. We do some shock tuning, some alignment, some dynamic alignment. We set up the motors a little bit differently per track in terms of nitrous jets and turbo sizing. So it's all the devil's in the details, right? We're always tinkering with the little things, and I think there are many things we're not good at in our team and that I'm not good at. But one thing we've often been pretty good at is understanding which direction to go with some setup. Like this weekend, we're always up and down in tire pressures, like any drifter, but we're also sort of tweaking bar setups and doing small changes. And I think Steph, my crew chief and team owner, and myself have a pretty good lingo and dialogue going in terms of setup per round. And we're very analytical and fact-based and kind of boring like that, whereas other drivers are perhaps more driven by emotion and more driving by the seat of the pants, kind of. We're probably a little bit more planned out and obviously still trying to react as we go.
Cool. And if let's say we want to dig a bit more into your past, what was your first real exposure to any type of motorsports or drifting, you know, when you were younger?
So my dad was a grassroots rallycross driver back in Norway, and he was a great driver, but didn't have the money, the funds, or really the time to prioritize it. Had 2 kids, and you know, yeah. So, but I got the interest from him as a kid, and then he fell into a little bit of money. We went go-kart racing until we ran out of money again, and that was my start in motorsports. And I freaking hated go-karting.
Really?
I came in from the first lap crying because I couldn't figure it out. But eventually started figuring it out, and I was always really tall, which is a downside in go-karting. So I only really did well in the rain.
Okay.
But then I grew a fascination for the drivers that weren't necessarily the fastest, but that had the most control over their karts. And then I discovered drifting, and then that ended up becoming my dream, you know, seeing if I could learn the art of drifting. And I had this pipe dream, you know, sitting in my little room in the middle of the forest in Norway, dreaming of maybe one day going up against the best in the world, you know. So, but it was all a step-by-step thing, and maybe an unusual way to get into it, because I was never a good mechanic myself. I pursued school. I have a bit, you know, business degree, but I had friends that were a lot better mechanics and car guys than I was, and I can wrench, but I'm just not that fast. So. But the go-kart days are still with me today. I still think that was a great foundation, and I have a decent understanding of race lines, and I have a decent logical sense, I feel like, which helps nowadays.
And speaking of, you know, your early years, what is the first car that you ever drifted?
First car I ever drifted was probably my grandpa's Mercedes W123 wagon 300 TD turbo diesel.
Wow.
With a seized up turbo, so it was pretty sluggish.
So it was NA pretty much.
Yeah, it was with the blocked exhaust, you know. So But my first actual drift car was a BMW E30 that my homies and I built with an S50, the Euro E36 M3 engine. So that was my, actual build car.
Not a bad way to start off.
And I remember, because a lot of people think your first time in FD, you were driving I think it was the TC. But I remember seeing you a couple of years prior in a MK4 Supra.
That's right. Yeah. That was actually the first car I drove in FD, but in my rookie year in FD was with that Supra. And that was after we built that E30, we won the Norwegian championship, and then I got a sponsorship from Japan Auto, which was a JDM car importer in Norway.
Okay.
So they basically gave me that Supra, which was a bastard of two crash cars assembled in Norway, etc. And we built that car, and at the time, everybody was like, the Supra's way too heavy, that's not a drift car. There was really no one really using it or succeeding with it in Japan. You had obviously RSR and the Rido, but it wasn't really the go-to chassis.
Yeah.
Still isn't. But I started looking into, I've always been this kind of, I won't take no for an answer, and I have a pretty solid bullshit filter. When people tell me something can't be done, then I try and figure out why. So I started making a Lego model of the front end of the Supra and realized this is pretty much the ultimate if you want steering lock. Because at the time, 2007, 2008, nobody really had a lot of steering angle. And in the shed in Norway, we figured out how to build one of the drift cars of that era that had the most steering angle. So we were able to float on that particular advantage in a lot of the events in Europe. We did really well, had a lot of angle. And when the 2008 Red Bull World Championships here in California was held, we realized they were inviting the 32 best teams in the world. And we put together a petition, sent it over, and got accepted. And I was like, we have no business there. We are not, don't have the experience, not the money, not the car, not nothing, not the team, but we had one thing, and that was an understanding that we had the most steering angle in the car. So that one thing, holding on to that, gave me the confidence to ship the car and actually pull the trigger and go for it.
Out of curiosity, because I always wondered this, how much is it to ship a car like from overseas to the US, if you remember?
Back then, I think so. We shipped the 20-foot container from Norway. That probably went from Norway to Holland or Germany, and from there across. I think back then it was probably like $2,000 or $3,000 for the container.
Oh, okay.
During the COVID and the shipping crisis and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That multiplied by 10.
Yeah.
So 30 grand to ship a container. Now it's probably back down with inflation, all this stuff, probably 10 grand or 5 grand. No, between 5 and 10, I guess.
And there's a delay
plus
of like
paperwork.
2 to 3 months.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's pretty insane. So coming from Norway, how do you bridge the gap to become, an FD champion? Because there's a lot of steps in there.
Sure. How do you do that? I mean, Norway and a lot of Europe is very pro-America, right? Like we've all grown up with like American pop culture, and I grew up watching Baywatch and all that, right? And all kind of, a lot of us have always dreamt of making it big, and the American dream and all that. So the cultural connection is there for a lot of us coming from Scandinavia, from Northern Europe. But to actually do it, it's not a very common thing. And we have this sort of cultural limiter in Scandinavia called the Janteloven, Jante's law, which means you're not supposed to stick out. Culturally, we don't really embrace people to be cocky and really different from the rest, But when someone does that and does it successfully and does it with some sort of grace, then they are appreciated and celebrated. And I have a lot of that in me that and very much Norwegian, but I also had a fascination for and interest of everything over here. And I felt like that was always a good mix. And I meshed pretty well with the American culture from the get-go, and started making friends out here. And I think going from a rookie, pouring everything you had and then some into trying to make it happen and becoming pro, what happened in the middle there is that Steph saw that this guy is gonna do whatever it takes to beat us. This guy is gonna do everything he can to win an FD with whatever he has. And that is what sponsors are looking for. They're looking for someone with that passion, that eat, sleep, breathe, dream drifting, and would do it no matter what.
Yeah.
And I think it doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter where you grew up. It doesn't matter. I think realistically, it'd be better for me to be born American, be easier probably to market, and for sponsors to accept that. But you can be from anywhere in the world. If you have that passion and that conviction to do something, you're just gonna make it happen.
Good answer. I like that. Do you have any questions?
I guess I went off on a tangent there.
No, it was more better than I expected of an answer.
So I did have kind of a question while I was at the gas station this morning. So, you know, you being sponsored by Rockstar and everything like that, I was looking for a drink, a beverage for today, and I had to get Rockstar. I guess my question is, what's your favorite flavor? Do you have one?
I do. I don't have my own flavor, but the pina colada. There was one, you know, they've come out with the new pina colada now. There was one in the past, but the new one, that's my jam. And that probably comes from, I've had some vacations with some really freaking good pina colada drinks. I had one, like, reminiscing of dancing merengue into the sunset with the pina colada in each hand. Exactly. Yeah, you know.
All I could hear is the song in my head.
Yeah.
You like pina colada.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. So when you're going into a tandem battle in competition, what is your mindset when you're sitting there at the start line?
Good question. What we do as drifters, and you know this, it's very mental. It's not a physical sport, it's a mental sport. Because the cars are easy to drive from a physical point of view. You only have your 2 runs that are typically 25 seconds each. So it's all about making those 25 seconds count, right? The big turning point for me was going from being a rookie that just was out there winging it to understanding the mental game and the mental side of it. And I've spent a lot of time, I've read literature, books, learned from other sports on how they handle that pressure and get ready for them to do the thing that they do. And so how I'm preparing for that battle is I usually allow myself to not think about it too much, because I can really be hyper-focused and wear myself out. So I make it a point to allow myself not to think about all the details until it matters. It's usually 2 minutes or so before the battle. I have my rhythm of what I do, put on the gloves, start, you know, going through the plan. You typically have some notes on the markers I want to hit up the track, and basically I'm trying to simplify everything, and I have like 4 or 5 points that I want to hit in the run. So just go over that, and I cruise down, make myself comfortable in the seat, and then I just let it happen. Okay. I try and just stay in a very calm mindset, not too hyped, not too relaxed. I know a lot of people like to listen to music. Some people, like Ryan, my teammate, he's more of a hype man kind of guy. Like his spotter, Brian, will hype him up and like, you freaking got this, face your day. Whereas Steph and I are the most nerdy, kooky dudes ever on the radio. So it sounds simple, but it is kind of simple when you're in it.
I guess it depends on the person. I know, like, the next question is, a lot of people will be interested to hear the answer, because not everybody handles stress the same way. Now, I not a lot of people know this, but I was an international Olympic level athlete. I was a figure skater. And
Wow.
yeah. And I learned a lot. I was in a sports study school, so we actually had classes for sports psychology and how to deal with all the stress and everything. So I was able to take that and bring it into competition and drifting, because I know a lot of people that are amazing drifters, but when it comes to time in competition, they'll choke and they'll make small mistakes because they're stressed. And how do you handle stress? What's, when you're sitting on this weekend, when you were going against James Deane for the first place, what's going through your mind, and how are you dealing with that? So I don't know if you're a stressful person or if you're calm, even though it's the finals, but like, how do you handle that?
Well, first and foremost, we need to talk more, because it's really cool to hear about this. Not just the lighting, but your background. That's it. A sport is a sport,
yeah.
No matter if it's figure skating or if it's drifting or whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm actually a lot less stressed when I go out against James in the final than I am in top 32 against Connor O'Sullivan, who just a rookie really in pro.
Yeah.
I'm a lot more stressed in 32 because the stakes are a lot higher. If we lose out in the top 32, which we may very well do, and Connor was faster than us, he started figuring out the track. He was still a little bit new to the track, which meant he wasn't always perfect, which is even harder to follow. In many ways, that's a tougher battle than battling James. Obviously, and I mean this with not taken away from any of them, because obviously James is the world's best, but James is going to not make a mistake. I mean, at least usually not, right? And that pressure in the final is just, at that point, it doesn't really matter if you win or lose, because just being in the final is a win in itself.
Yeah. So
again, I rolled out to that finals being very calm, very relaxed, trusting that I had what was needed, because we had already done all the other battles, so I was getting pretty comfortable. And we never had great lead runs, but we had pretty good chases and so forth. Whereas with that first battle is a lot more tense, because you've had a long break, you don't know this driver you're driving with that much. And to really answer your question, the one thing that helps the most with the pressure is for the people around you, and especially the team, to not care that much. And what I mean by that is, if our performance, and let's say if our sponsorships were totally were only bonuses, they were only dependent on how we would finish, then that is a lot more pressure than if you have a set retainer and a set budget. Yeah. So everything we do as a team, or a lot of the things we do, is about trying to limit the pressure on earning results.
Interesting.
So a lot of times throughout my career, I've actually done better when I'm a little worn out, and I've done a lot of other things, traveled the world, been competing in Japan, China, and Europe, and I show up to FD kind of worn out, because then I still have some other dogs in some other fights, so that if FD doesn't go well, at least I have these other things. So it's really about structuring your life to not really depend on whether you win or lose that battle.
Okay. It's an interesting mindset.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people can utilize that. So very good info.
Just set yourself up beforehand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And going against different drivers. So you mentioned going against James Deane. He's going to drive well, might be easier to chase. Do you have to set up certain strategies depending who you're going against?
For sure. I mean, the lead run is the lead run, no matter what. Yeah. Of course, if we, and this is an interesting thing about this particular track that we can get into if you want to, but the lead run is more or less the lead run. You don't really change that much. But the chase, we really try and gauge what we're expecting from the other driver, and if we're leading first, that means you have the info of whether you have an advantage or not beforehand. So we would typically have what we call like a standard chase, which is perhaps leaving a slight bit of distance at initiation, not pushing very hard everywhere, but still putting the nose in the least risky spots, and just being there and finishing off strong. Let's say that's the go-to. If we have a big advantage, maybe we'll afford ourselves the ability to hold back a little bit more, but that's a slippery slope too, because then you might get caught in smoke and etc. Okay. And then we have the 50-50 run, or the Hail Mary run. Let's say we're sitting at a big big disadvantage, and we really gotta try and win it on the chase. And that's when we go in, guns blaring, maybe pushing too hard, maybe tapping a little bit, with the risk of being too aggressive, but with the potential upside of pushing someone into a mistake.
Cool. To talk more about the Supra, is there any special characteristics about it? Is there any changes that got, or not changes, but was the car built to suit your style of driving?
Yeah, it's not really anything very special about that build. It's just a solid built, well thought out, standard drift build, really. More or less off the shelf suspension parts. Sure, we've developed the rear kit with Weissfab. We're very close with them. It's built to the width that we wanted. Certain things in the front end, we've worked with them, but all that can be bought. People can get all that stuff. And the motors are obviously a little bit of a niche motor, with the B58 motor. Nowadays, there's a lot of those motors built around the world, but it's not really very groundbreaking in a lot of ways. There's no like fancy crash structure in the rear. Nothing really super trick, but just solid. And we have some philosophies that we believe in. We build the motors to have a very wide power band. We build them to be able to rev to the moon. But then we tune them and set up the turbo and the nitro setup to be very torquey, so peak power is actually pretty low, but we have a lot of over rev so that you can avoid shifting. We want to try and limit the amounts of shifts we do, because that's time wasted and the chance of a misshift. So we really try and break it down into simple things and try and not be in over our heads and go down these like rabbit holes. And that's always worked well for Steph. He's very well versed. He knows a lot of things, but he always resorts back to trying to have a reliable setup, and he always plays the devil's advocate. If me or someone else have an idea, he always tries to look at it from the other side. So we try and always challenge each other in everything we do, and that goes into the car build as well.
That sort of leads me to my next question. Like, aside from the car, does Papadakis Racing, how do you and Steph push the envelope in every season going into Formula D? Is there other aspects aside from the vehicle that are just as important, or mainly simple, just like the car build, like you were saying?
We want to have, we're very aware of kind of what we want out of life. And he is probably more aware than I am. Steph he doesn't want to bury himself into the ground with trying to turn every stone and always tinker on the race car. He has a life on the side. He has his hands in a lot of different things, and he's been racing for 30 years now in drag racing and drift. And we make it a point to try and have fun, really have fun, If not, you get burned out. And we try and make the weekends be a little bit of a vacation for the boys. We always try and have some good dinners. We always try and joke around. We always try and enjoy ourselves. But of course, get the job done. And we're trying to be, how to put it without sounding without this coming out bad. We're trying to be smarter than maybe working harder, if that makes sense.
Work smarter than work hard.
Yeah, I guess that's the same. And And I feel like this offseason is an example of that, going to Kenda, right? Mm-hmm. On paper, it's insanity to go from Nitto, the tire that's been the champion 5 years in a row, over 40 podium streak. We got a couple championships with them. RTR has gotten 3, has been and is the best, has been, at least up until now, the best tire in the sport, right? Mm-hmm. To go from Nitto to Kenda, who didn't have a single podium in the sport, why would you do that, right? I think there were a lot of skeptics, and a lot of people thought we did it for money, which is absolutely not the case. We did it for performance and for trying to stay ahead of the curve. Mm-hmm. So obviously we put our time in, our due diligence. We've been testing. We've done 3 tests, and we thought we had realized that the Kenda was actually better in certain ways than the Nitto. And it was that simple. And of course, one thing is testing, another thing is proving it in real life. And obviously we didn't know exactly what to expect going into Long Beach, but once we hit the ground, once we did our tests up in the desert, once we started benchmarking and testing against the other teams, we were like, seems like our theory might be holding true. There is something here. Let's work with this. Let's keep pushing, and then pulling off the win, right?
Yeah.
First win for Kenda, first event with us, and then getting it done on the first try. Yeah. That is the kind of stuff that not only dreams are made of, but that is what we are trying to do as a team, right?
It must feel great. Like, I didn't even realize that it was the first Kenda win, so that's pretty cool. You must
first
be proud.
Podium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Podium, not only a win, first podium. Wow.
Yeah. Definitely relieves some of the stress for the team as well, making that decision going into it, and then, the first race.
Absolutely.
You come out with the dub. That's awesome.
The only downside is it can only go down from there.
That's true. I want to throw in a question before. I know you have a question, but I remember hearing an interview with you preparing a couple of days before going to FD. You mentioned, I think, like a week or 2 before, you don't drink any alcohol. Is that?
That's right.
Yeah?
100%. Yeah.
I probably know a lot of drivers that don't follow that. I know a lot of drivers that before a competition, they'll be partying on Friday night, having a couple of beers. Sure. But what's your reasoning for that?
It's actually mostly confidence building. It's actually mostly discipline.
Okay.
And sure, there's some physical aspects to that probably, Mm-hmm. You want to be sharp and all those things. But for me, it's just a rhythm thing and telling myself, okay, now's the time to start getting ready. And, I do sometimes break that habit, and that's also sometimes that's worked out really well too. Mm-hmm. But it's just kind of, I don't know. It's really about discipline, and I also do other things. I eat kind of safe. I eat things that I typically won't mess me up. Mm-hmm. I fly in for every round of FD across the Atlantic usually, or the Pacific if I'm in Asia, and there's enough other things that might get you sick or screw you up in some way. So trying to limit the variables usually helps. And post race is a different story, especially if you do well. I love to party it up with my friends, and I love to celebrate mostly and live, But I do take FD obviously very seriously, and that prep is part of that.
Yeah, it's funny you made me remember something, talking about eating safe and everything. I had a competition in The Hague, like near the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, near Amsterdam. Sorry, that's what I wanted to say. And not that I didn't get like food poisoning or anything, but I guess I ate something that my body wasn't used to, and I was not feeling good.
No.
Yeah, and I can tell you when you go into like, I'm sure any sport competition, but like going into a competition with your stomach that's like, oh no.
That's the last thing you want.
Yeah, not cool.
Yeah, I remember the first time I was in Indonesia, in Jakarta. This is now 13 years ago, so I was still pretty fresh, and I got food poisoned on the way home, and basically, and with all the layovers on the flights, I ran from bathroom to bathroom. And I remember in Singapore, they were boarding the A380, like the the huge double-decker plane.
Yeah.
And I was running through last call when they were about to shut the door, and I was running through the airport. Fucking sorry, I freaking worn out,
Yeah.
And I remember looking over to my side at Changi Airport in Singapore, and one of the biggest airports in the world. I'd never been there before at the time, and I feel absolutely terrible. And I look over to my side, and I see myself on a big TV screen, like holding a trophy and like chatting it up. And I was like, am I getting delirious now? Like, what's going on? It was very strange.
Oh, wow.
And people think this life and what we do is all glitz and glamour, and it's absolutely not. There's the travel stuff gets old quickly. Do
you even calculate it sometimes in a year how much you fly?
I've done it, but I've stopped doing it. I started calculating my CO2 footprint, and I quickly stopped doing that.
Oh, interesting.
All the travels in and out and what I do, I'm not the most green.
I would just be looking at those air mile points racking up.
Yeah, definitely some of those.
That's cool. Save it for the vacation time.
Yeah.
All right. So when you look back at your Formula D career, what would you say? What moments really stand out the most? Is it like your rookie year, or your first win, your third win?
There's a few of them, right? Maybe the first one was our first international win in Abu Dhabi in 2011. Before I had started with Steph here, but we had signed the contract, we actually won that invitational in Abu Dhabi, which was like competing on a different planet. And the Sheik came and gave us the trophy, and we were partying at the yacht club at Yas Marina with dwarves pouring Grey Goose vodka from bottles that were taller than themselves. Like that whole thing is insane. So that whole scene, that whole spectacle, that's a big memory. And then obviously starting with Steph and turning professional, right? And this becoming my career, but that's all kind of fluid. But I think winning the first championship, 2015, my life was complete, and I actually almost retired after that.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. Because my dream was just to try and win the champion. Like, at that moment, there's no more to do. Like, when you win that championship and when you've invested 10 years of your life into that dream, and it actually happens, and you're in Laguna Beach after the race, and your parents are having the time of their life swimming in the ocean, and your buddies are there, and you made it.
Yeah.
And I was really empty and lost after that. I was like, what now? And I'm not the kind of I'm more of an artist than I am like a day-to-day grinder. I usually like to try new stuff. And it took a lot of convincing of myself to actually continue. And obviously now I'm very, very happy and grateful and for the opportunity and all that. But motivation comes and goes. So you got to find the motivation within what you do. And for me, what keeps me coming back is that it's not winning, it's the figuring out those little things that make your package and your driving in the car a little bit better. Those nerdy things, they're what keeps me coming back.
I know it's I like hearing different like aspects and what a person goes through in their career, because coming back to figure skating again, one of my good buddies back in the day when I used to skate, Patrick Chan, who he's done 3 Olympics, he's like a 2 or 3 time Olympic medalist. When there was one part of his career that he was sort of lost, exactly like you said, and he decided to take a break and just like live life a bit. I actually took him drifting. He tried drifting my S14. At the time, he had bought Paul Walker's GTR that had like 1,300 horsepower.
Oh, wow.
And he started doing a bit more things, but he ended up making a comeback because he had that feeling of, I don't want people to forget me. And yeah, he made a comeback, and he had a pretty decent, successful comeback. And now he's married, he has a kid and everything. So moved on to the next chapter of his life. But yeah,
does he still have the GTR?
No, he ended up selling that, but he has like a 900 horsepower Evo 8, if I'm not mistaken. But I think every athlete, every person goes through like up and downs, rocky moments that you have to like find yourself. And yeah,
you don't want to burn yourself out either, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you look at a lot of the young athletes, if you look in racing, for instance, really high-end racing, you look at F1, Max Verstappen. I feel like he's been on record saying that I'm not sure if I want to keep chasing the 9th or 10th title. There are other things to life as well.
Yeah.
Which is perhaps a little bit of a change in tone over previous champions, right?
Yeah.
Same thing in WRC with Kalle Rovanperä, the Finnish WRC driver. He took a year off, started doing some other forms of racing. He's collecting cars, hanging out with his buddies. Like, I feel like the new generation is more aware of that, and they realize there's more to life than just grinding it out. You know?
That actually leads us perfectly into the next and final question is, how do you want to be remembered in the drift community?
Ooh, good question. It's kind of scary to respond to that because I feel like you could jinx yourself pretty good, and it's so outside of my control. Also, like I can't. But I've gotten a lot of criticism, I think, over the years. I think some people think I can come across as being very polished. I think I'm generally a nice guy, but I think some people think it's a facade. And I think sometimes I don't like that. I feel like maybe I'd benefit or be liked more if I was more open with myself and showed my emotions more and got mad when that was called for, or showed more of myself, really. So, but I am kind of an introverted person. I am kind of just private like that, and I'm trying to be better at sharing, not being so scared of like sharing ups and downs. And this weekend we did a big Snapchat thing with really showing a lot more behind the scenes stuff of what we did, and I like that. And I feel like at this stage of my career I can probably afford being not being so worried, about how I'm taken or whatever. So again, to answer your question, how do I want to be remembered? Hopefully I can be remembered as a guy that did my all and meant well and wanted to win, not just for myself, but for everyone that's with us, and that made the champions sweat a little bit, because I am fierce. I am 100% an all-in competitor, and if this sport, if we were all out there holding hands, it wouldn't be fun for any of us. So I hope I can be remembered as that mix.
Very good.
Perfect answer.
Like all right, to close out the podcast, we're gonna do our rapid fire questions. So quick question, quick answer, and we'll have fun with it.
Okay.
I'll let you start, Harjohn.
All right. Ready? Okay. What do you think is the most underrated skill in drifting?
Business sense.
Okay.
All right. And leader Chase, what's your favorite?
Chase.
All right. One track that always gets your adrenaline going.
Long Beach.
Ooh.
I have a feeling that's going to come up a lot. Yeah. Favorite chassis of all time?
Mark IV Supra or its brother, longer brother, the SC.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
I love Toyota.
So that is, sorry to drag this question out, but
That's fine.
an unpolished diamond.
Really?
SC.
There was actually one for many years. I think when you came to FD Canada in Saint Eustache, Jonathan Guitard had a SC 400 or 300 or and he drove that chassis for a long time. Yeah. Cool. All right, this one's good. Turbo, supercharger, or no replacement for displacement?
Honestly, no replacement for displacement.
Really?
Wow.
I was not expecting that.
Right?
Wow.
There's, we've always competed in turbo cars here.
Yeah.
But there you start kind of running out of drivability a little bit, and it's complex. I don't think anyone really has had the perfect motor setup yet. FD. The NA motors running big nitrous like the RTR boys, they're great, but I think even more cubes could be better.
I got to say, I started off with an SR20, like a big GTX 30, revving high. I now have an LS, and I like the more torque. I miss high revving. That's like,
how about both?
That's the thing. I'd love to build an LS that revs high. I know it gets a lot more expensive, but like a high revving V8, like the is it the Voodoo, which is the GT350 Mustang that revs at like 8,300.
Hennessy as well, or
a V8 that revs high sounds amazing. All right, we go on.
What's the weirdest mod that you've ever tried?
That's a good one.
Weirdest mod, car mod.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. We've tried some shit over the years. But the weirdest one. Well, I've tried a drift car once with an upside down rack.
An upside down rack?
Whoa.
Turning left would turn right.
What?
Yeah, it was terrible.
That must be so weird.
Counterintuitive.
It's like backing up when you have a trailer.
Steer away from where you want to go.
Yeah.
It's so so we drove it on a go-kart track, and it was a Volvo. And the way to do it is to always chase it, never actually go straight, because then you forget.
Yeah.
You
you
got to always kind of steer it so you remember to go the other way.
I would have never expected. Wow. Wow.
Terrible.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. And do you have any pre-race rituals?
Not really, aside of just being a boring human and just staying in my phone and eating boring food and one thing on the flights, I used to hate flying. Now I'm actually quite okay with the flying itself, because it's a great excuse to shut everything off and sleep and or watch cartoons. Actually, I watched all the cartoons on that's available on all the flights.
On the on-flight service.
Yeah.
Oh. All right. And what would you say is one word to describe your driving style?
Some people would probably say calculated, and I hate that word.
I was thinking in my head calculated.
I know, and I get it, and it is true, right? But it sounds so like there's a negative side to that, because it's kind of devious, I'd rather say one word I'd probably like better is smart, but I guess
Well, I think they go hand in hand. Calculated and smart are similar.
Right. But it's, strategizing and calculating and all that stuff. A lot of people don't like that. They want to see all out driving. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is driving that is wild or on the edge that can be a calculated move too.
True.
I think that it's I think so. Chelsea DeNofa, he's now part of our team. He's helping out Ryan, madman behind the wheel, fantastic driver, incredible style, all those things. But he's puts a lot more. He's a lot more thought out than I think a lot of people know.
He's really technical.
And Chelsea and I have had and we've had a lot of talks over the years, and this and that, and don't necessarily always agree on things, but other things we definitely agree on. And I think many different driving styles can actually be a choice and be a calculated move regardless.
Yeah, I used to spot for Miro Ovčarek, who did a couple of seasons of FD. And I know he was a really, really calculated driver. He drove DMCC for a couple of seasons. He did FD Canada. And he would always never drive harder than he needed to. Like, I don't think that would still work nowadays. But go back 5, 6, 7 years, I think it worked well for him. Like, he didn't have a lot of wrecks in his season. He didn't have a lot of, like, car failures. But he was really, really calculated driver. He was a really, like, meticulous person. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. If you do we still have time, or are we running out of time?
No, yeah, we still have time.
So
go for it.
Let's just quickly go over the finals this weekend in Long Beach.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
James on point every lap. Fantastic lead runs every single lap, wall to wall to wall. Fantastic chases, everything fantastic. Right. So if you break down the OMT, so we did our finals, and it was an OMT, and then we did our next battle. Him leading first, comes into, basically on point out of the first outer, into the second outer on point, then washes out, goes a little too wide, slams the wall, has a big correction, and disrupts for the chase, disrupts for me, right?
Yeah. Big
disadvantage. The downside of being that all in is that you have no margin. So let's watch this. He's on point, excellent. Touches the wall, gets out here, excellent, and then pushes.
Oh, that's the first.
Oh, that was actually.
That was before you guys.
That was not
kissed,
the one more time.
Kissed wheels.
Right. Yeah. My point with all of this is that when you're that perfect all the time, there's no margin. If the track gets slightly looser, if he makes a slight mistake, if he just turns it up a notch because he's stressed, there's nowhere to go. So if you instead can be slightly, so this is my run, is that the same battle?
I think it is.
It's the second run of that battle. Yeah. This is what led to one more time.
Yeah.
So I had much worse lead runs. We were far off the second outer, far off the third outer, but we had a decent chase. We were pretty close, even though it was a little bit choppy. We had perhaps a more aggressive chase in certain spots. So those two things led to the one more time. Now, if you, instead of going out, putting it all on the line, being that risky, which is what the fans want to see, naturally, but if you instead dial it back a little bit, you have a little more margin, and instead you work on your chase being so strong that you can win it on the chase. Now you have a lot more margin if something unforeseen comes up. And I think that's what happened. He pushed that a little bit extra, made that big mistake because he had nowhere to go. There was nothing left, and lost it there and then.
Yeah.
So that is an example that holding back those 3%, those 5%, is sometimes the smart thing to do, competition-wise, but it's not the most exciting, for me as a driver, not the most exciting thing to watch. That's why, for me, it's so important to do events where I can let loose and not care. That's when I throw the backwards entries. That's where we cut on the inside of tracks. That's where we jump the ice cars, I need that outlet somewhere, but it's not necessarily always in FD.
That's wicked.
Yeah.
And then I guess, what would you say is one of the most clutch moments in your career? Pun
clutch
intended.
Moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quick answer. Not quick, but like, if you're put on the spot, don't think.
Drop the clutch.
Yeah.
So many clutch moments. It would probably be. Sorry, I can't answer that.
it's fine.
Just end up
Too much
thinking
pressure.
about all the clutches I've destroyed, you know? And I've probably destroyed like 100 clutch discs over the years. Clutch moment, getting Rockstar 2015, winning Long Beach.
Wicked.
And then building the brand new Corolla 2018, winning Long Beach. And then getting the new Kenda tire, winning Long Beach 2025. Can I call out those 3 moments?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome.
All right.
Most epic, and I have one in mind, and I'll tell you after you answer, but most epic battle you've ever had.
Ooh, most epic battle. Maybe it was the Shanahan battles last year in New Jersey. They were just kind of dialed. I'm going to say battling my tandem partner and farmer, Martin, on the ice this winter.
Okay.
In Norway. How about that?
The one I had in mind, I forget what year it was, maybe 2019. Irwindale, Von Gittin Jr. It was the finals.
18.
It was 18?
18.
Yeah. And like first battles, one more time. Second set of battles, one more time. And it was just like insane battles. I think Vaughn was like scraping the walls and the sparks were getting thrown in the second bang. Oh, for me, that was like amazing.
I remember that so well. So 2 one more time, 6 runs total.
Yeah.
He led me he came in slightly too hard into the inner bank, and its rear crash structure kind of caught him in a nice way.
Yeah.
And I had an uglier correction behind him. We lost the battle and lost the championship right there and then.
Yeah.
So, and next year in Long Beach, I sat next to Juan at the drivers meeting, and the judges said, okay, so this year we're not going to let you get away with bearing the crash structure into the wall, because old cars can't do that. And Vaughn looked at me and said, they're basically saying that if this had happened again, you would have won the championship.
But honestly, those set of battles, when like I meet up with people that don't know what drifting is, for the longest amount of years, I would show them those battles.
Yeah.
That was like so insane. The sounds and I love those battles.
Sure.
It was amazing. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Rival you respect the most.
Rival I respect the most. I mean, maybe James, you know. Yeah. He's such a complete, how to put this, complete human, you know. He's just a great guy. He's a great guy aside of being so good. But I respect everyone. I feel like I have a lot of respect for everyone in FD, and that, like we were touched on earlier, that goes for all the prospect guys that are badass. It goes for everyone that comes in, because they're all fantastic. If not, they wouldn't be in the sport, right?
Yeah.
And even if I've had beefs or brawls or crashes or whatever with the drivers, then, you know, I do respect them. And like Matt Field and I, we've had a lot of drama here in Long Beach and elsewhere. Still have mad respect for the guy. And you know, that people are different, but you got to respect them for what they do.
There's I don't know if we could get it once we edit this in post. There's a picture of you, this is years ago, a picture of you mimicking an image of the Rocky fight with the Russian fighter. I forget what his name is.
Ivan Drago.
Ivan Drago. Exactly. And it's you and, I have a blank memory.
Tony Angelo,
that's it. That's an amazing picture. Like they cop. Oh, I love that picture. It is so cool.
I must break you.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
That was good. One win that meant everything to you this weekend.
Yeah. I mean, we've had 20 wins in FD, and they're all obviously special. So the first one, 2014, was huge, but that was also some drama and this and that. And, you know, maybe this was the hardest spot, maybe overall the hardest driving, perhaps the most pressure. I mean, there's always pressure and all that, but I want to say this one. And I've never felt this comfortable in Chase, and we've been really, really hardcore practicing this winter, and it felt great to have that pay off by feeling comfortable. And now we're very, we're playing around with things, the right amount of sim drifting leading into the round, the right amount of this, the right amount of that, and we're trying to. The stakes are so high and everyone's so good. You need everything. So I want to say this one.
Cool. One loss that stings. Is it the one with Von Gitten when you lost the championship, or is there one that stings more than that?
That one stings, but you know, still second overall.
No, for sure.
I don't know. I remember 2020, the first year with the Supra, when we had the doubleheader rounds, COVID year.
Yeah.
And we won the first Irwindale, and I drove the thing straight into the wall the second run. Pretty disappointed at that. But I've had tough losses, and maybe when my parents have been around and watched some of their races, like my parents don't like to really tell me that they're there watching because they feel like then I make more mistakes. The first time Dad watched me on track, I drove off the track twice in one lap.
Oh shoot.
So.
Oh man.
So there's been a bunch of losses too, but I try not to think about them too much.
Yeah.
All right. What would you say is your craziest fan interaction? Has anyone ever snuck into your tour bus? Or?
Signing body parts.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely signed some body parts. But I don't know. They've mostly been cool. Like in the trailer now, so my nickname is Norwegian Hammer. So Jared came up with that, and it's a play on Thor, right? The Marvel character and the Norse god. So I've been given a bunch of these hammers. You know, that signature hammer he has, big, beefy rock hammer. I have several of those in various shapes and forms, small and big, and I have a really nicely built one that we have hung in the trailer. That one is now signed by Chris Hemsworth, the actual actor.
Really?
Thor.
That is so cool.
And that is pretty cool. And things like that, you know, like this weekend, Sung Kang comes up, you know, and I grew up watching Fast and the Furious. All my friends in Norway are big fans, and he casually comes up and starts talking about this movie he's making. He wants me to be a part of it. Just moments like that, they're not fan interactions, right? But moments like that make you pinch yourself a little bit, right? Because on the inside, you know you're a small town kid still from that little town you're from. And then these actual, you know, celebrities and very accomplished people are I don't know, in some way kind of feel like they respect what you do, you know?
Yeah.
And that is a very, very interesting feeling. And then you realize people are just people no matter who they are, you know? It's a great realization.
It's funny you say that because I was with Sung Kang at LZ World Tour in New Jersey, and I happened to make him and Brian Scotto some authentic Quebec poutine because I had brought poutine cheese with me.
Awesome.
And it like you said, like pinch yourself moment. I'm like, I'm just sitting here in the camper on the side of the track, just eating poutine with Sung Kang and Brian Scotto, and just
That's
having
so
a
cool.
regular discussion. Right. And I think for people like that, like Sung Kang, I think just having like a regular exchange with somebody,
exactly, yeah,
somebody that he doesn't know, it's probably cool versus somebody running after you, asking for an autograph or a picture, and just,
like refreshing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what he said. He really loved the drift atmosphere. He loved the camaraderie between drifters and everything. And he really said that the automotive world is his happy space. So, yeah. It was a cool moment.
All right. And if your car had a name, what would you name it?
Actually, a lot of our cars have had names, but the Norwegian cars. So my crew guy in Norway, Eric, he names them. So the previous one was Jane. My current Euro car is Sarah. Steph. For Steph, the car is kind of just a tool, you know. But if it had a name, I mean, it would have to be some sort of Jekyll and Hyde kind of name, because the Supra is very civilized, not very loud, so like you could drive that thing to the store no problem, you know. But once you need it, once you step on it, once you're asking something from it, and we have it set up right, it's a freaking beast. So it would be some sort of name that implies dual personality.
Okay.
So open for suggestions.
Side question, aside from you saying that the car's not loud, does that, like, when I once went up against somebody and their car was way louder and I was actually lost. I couldn't, like, I couldn't hear my car anymore.
You a little bit.
Yeah. So I don't know if that happens to you.
It's more that some of those NA, like Otis cars.
I was just about to say Otis car. Yeah.
They're insane.
Yeah.
With the supercharger but no basically exhaust muffling from a turbo or anything.
Yeah.
They blow my eardrums in,
Yeah.
even with the pieces and the helmet and everything.
Yeah.
But in the past, I do think about what you're talking about. That's why I don't run in-car or in-helmet muffs. I run like more traditional in-ear plugs.
Okay.
With comms in them.
Okay.
Just to have a little bit more audible in. And the car's quiet idling, but it's not that quiet on chat.
Yeah.
You know? So it's the right kind of volume for in-car, but
yeah,
as always, you obviously want it louder or brazier sounding for judges and all that. I think there's some X factor to how the car's built, how it's tuned, how it sounds, how it looks.
Yeah.
There's some X factor in all of that.
Yep.
Yeah, and other than all the pina colada rock stars that you have in your fridge, what else do you keep in your trailer fridge?
The boys like beer, you know, and after race beers.
Mechanics got to get paid somehow.
Yes. We have a lot of so Matt, our rig driver and also filmer on the team and fixer, he always sets up this little bar, not alcoholic bar, but like he always has fruit and kind of healthy stuff and some unhealthy stuff. But we always keep steaks. Mario, the second guy on my car, is very much a steak aficionado, so he'll always cook him in Wagyu and all this stuff. So let's have some good meats, some good drinks, and we're set.
That's awesome.
Good. That's good. Yeah, that's a lot better than a lot other drivers with their little snackables.
Yeah.
We have those too, but
okay, last bracket. Whose car would you want to drive from any era in the drift world?
I'd love to try at some point I'd love to try the Mustangs, the RTR cars, to expand my horizon, you know? And there's a lot of other cars I don't really care. Now I sound jaded, but I think there's a lot of cars that I wouldn't like, because I'm very specific with certain things.
Okay.
And from any era, you know, I obviously appreciate the history of drifting. I'm building an AE86 back home, and I'm trying to do I'm trying to evolve certain things while still keeping that DNA. You know, I'm doing some steering things that will speed things up and playing around with different drivetrain and things like that. And a lot of the older cars I don't particularly, you know, like maybe UAO's cars, something like that for the novelty. But like the early 2000 JDM cars, I think they're cool. Definitely has their place. But a lot of things have happened. And I think you could drive those cars today, which we did a couple of years ago for the RSR Drift Festival, celebrating them. But it becomes clear very quickly that they are old fighter jets, you know? They're not
archaic.
You can't do things. Yeah, you can't do things that we're doing today in those cars.
Okay. 3 more questions. We'll try to blow through them because I'm getting the eye that we're up for time. One driver you'd love to tandem with, again, from any era.
Taniguchi.
Ooh.
Nobuchiro Taniguchi. Yep.
Cool.
Last time he beat me.
Favorite car movie?
Days of Thunder.
Really?
There's no other movies from that. Yeah.
Cool. And final question. Fill in the blank and my sentence. Drifting is...
my forever love.
Oh, yeah.
Like it. Love it, actually. Very cool. Well, thank you very much for giving us your time. Congratulations again on the win in Long Beach. Wished you all the best of luck for round 2 in Atlanta. And I'll be seeing you in New Jersey. Actually, we'll be seeing you because PASMAG is doing their rally and car
to
show.
New Jersey.
Yeah. So.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Thanks for having me. This was honestly a very cool discussion, and I'd love to chat more with you guys. So thanks for having me, and I'll see you in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Well, everybody, for all our viewers, go check out Fredric's social media, Instagram, YouTube. I'm not sure all his channels, and same
Snapchat.
Snapchat.
Big.
Yeah. Perfect. And same thing for all the PASMAG socials, YouTube, Instagram.
Yep. You're at the right channel.
There you go. So I'm Kevin Darwish, drift editor at PASMAG.
I'm Harjohn, also editor at PASMAG.
And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.